What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to do with you guys. This is the Zero Tolerance 0850 Sienkiewicz and Rexford collab. This is actually the Sprint Run, the original being the one in blue carbon fiber. That was kind of a, the first time I looked at that, the original one, I was like, that is a weird looking knife. And I was not sure what to think about it. In my mind, for whatever reason, I thought, it looks very high quality. It looks like it's definitely going to be on ZT's like upper tier in terms of price and just, the overall design. But I just was not sure about the aesthetic. And now having this version in hand, specifically this version in hand, I'm really glad that I have a chance to take a look at it. That was made possible by our good buddy at ShakerMT1970 on Instagram. So give that guy a follow. Thank you so much, Shaker, for lending this guy to me. If you are new to my channel or you've been around for a while, either way, I do have a Patreon. You can go and take a look. There's a link down in the description if you'd like to get yourself, join one of the lower tiers and get yourself either my Metal Complex logo sticker or my Metal Knight helmet sticker. Also, at any of the tiers, even the $1 tier, you can gain access to my once-a-week Patreon exclusive content and support my channel in that way. You can also get a shout-out. Anybody who joins right now will get a shout-out if you'd like me to plug your Instagram, your YouTube, or just say something funny. As long as it's appropriate for YouTube, I don't mind, so I would really appreciate the support. Like I said, you can check that link out in the description. Let's go ahead and get a measurement here. The overall length of the ZT0850, it's a big knife. It really is deceptively large. It's almost 8.75 inches overall. Really big. Blade length, you could call it 4 inches. We have curvature in the scale there, which is why I say you could call it that. The actual cutting edge is definitely 4 inches. You actually have 4 inches of cutting edge on this beast. This is a big knife. It is very lightweight, which we'll get to in a second for how big it is, which is why it throws me off. Let's do some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1. You can see there, Rat 1 not coming in quite as long, about 8.6 inches overall. How about up against the Spyderco PM2? Spyderco PM2 coming in at 8.3 inches overall, so the ZT still coming in a little bit larger. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue? Ritter Hogue coming in at 8 inches overall, so again, not quite as big. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, not Griptilian, Bug Out. Benchmade Bug Out coming in at 7.5 inches overall. And last but not least, the Spyderco Para 3. Para 3 coming in at 7.25 inches overall. How's the action on this guy? The action's good. Initially, I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I remember getting it out of the box and going, well, the action's good. It's snappy, but there's a little bit of friction in there. It's smooth, but there's some friction. I wonder what's going on. Is it just tight? Well, I did not realize this until I got to looking at it, and I realized this guy is, where is my flashlight? There it is. Running on phosphor bronze. That was a very pleasant surprise, considering, in this this day and age, didn't catch that one there very well. In this day and age, bearings are just like everywhere. They're in everything. And while bearings make your knife feel, super cool and new and very fidgety, and they give you that sense of a really smooth action, they give you that sense of quality. The truth is that phosphor bronze is just better in a hard use environment. Why? Because there's no real room for anything to get in there between the washer and the frame, or the washer and the blade. So it keeps everything out of there. It keeps the knife operating. So while it may not be as smooth as a knife that's on bearings most of the time, it is definitely an optimal setup for hard use. Hard use, heavy quotes on hard use. So the action's very good, though. The detent is great. The access to this little 6-shooter, this really cool little 6-shooter thumb stud is great. I can actually do the reverse flick just fine, and I can do the forward flick just fine. And I don't want anybody to think that the action is gritty. It actually is very smooth. It's just, this isn't going to be a knife that you really can, you can give it a little bit of encouragement and shake it shut, but it's not going to be quite like bearings. The detent is good. I would call it medium heavy. Absolutely. Really, really happy with the action on that, considering it's phosphor bronze. Let's go ahead and weigh it. Excuse me while we figure out what's going on here with my scale. And there we go. Okay, so weight on this guy coming in at almost 4 ounces, 4.16 ounces, almost an ounce of inch for those of you who think that way. That's really impressive to me considering how much blade we have on this guy. Now, I know a lot of people are saying 4 ounces is so heavy. 4 ounces is kind of the universally accepted weight. You know, I think it was Nut and Fancy who was like, you know, maximum of 4 ounces. Anything under 4 ounces is good. You know, it's like I always say, it depends on carry profile and a lot of other things, but for most people, that's going to be just fine. And the reason that it's able to come in at 4 ounces is because the body is almost entirely carbon fiber. You can see there we have the subframe lock and we have the backspacer attached to the frame, but really most of the frame is just carbon fiber. So you get a really nice lightweight design, and at the same time, it is actually fairly well balanced. The balance is, despite my inability to really do this on camera, the balance is right about here. It's like directly under the pivot. So just in front of where you're going to put your hands. That's really, that's really cool. It's like the more that I handle and play with this knife, it's like the more that I get it. To me, the collaboration between Sienkiewicz and Rexford is odd. Like it's because they have two completely different styles. And I look at this and it doesn't look to me, it doesn't look distinctly Sienkiewicz or distinctly Rexford, but it's like, okay, I see how they arrived at this at this juncture. You know, I see how they got here. And then in practice, I'm holding this knife and laying my hand, and I'm like, man, this is really, really cool. It's like it's a very aggressive tactical kitchen knife that's also like a sheep's foot. You know, it's weird. It's its own thing, and that's why I think initially when the blue version, you know, ZT did that thing where it's like they should have just released the one in black first, and then if they wanted to do a cool sprint, then do the blue carbon fiber one. But they did things in reverse, and they did the blue carbon fiber as the production version and this black version as the sprint run. By the way, this and the blue version are both apparently discontinued, though I know that there are still a few of these floating around out there, especially at the time of this video. So check the date on the video. If you're watching this, you know, within a month from now, you might be able to still get your hands on one of these. If you're watching this a year or two in the future, it's likely not going to be around. But yeah, the blue version was kind of, some people are going to like it, some people aren't. The black version, I think, a lot more people took to it. I think that was a smart move to release one. What we have here is a two-tone, partially DLC coated and partially satin finished 20 CV blade that is it's in a sheep's foot. We have a flat that comes out about 70% the length of the blade. Very prominent swedge up top. Really, really cool looking. And then a sort of casual drop down to a tip. So you do still have an absolutely functional puncture tip if you need it to operate like that. But at the same time, you definitely have quite a bit of strength running all the way down there to the edge. Looking here, the spine right here is actually DLC coated, and then you have satin finishing on the swedge, and then more coating on the flat, and then more satin finishing down on the blade. The contrast is nice. I'm not normally one for DLC coated blades. That's not generally my thing. I'm kind of figuring out where the best angle is to lay this. You know, I don't like that when it turns like this and you're like, ugh, I want to see the satin reflectivity of the blade. There we go. That's a handsome position to lay the knife. But on this knife, for whatever reason, I kind of like the two-tone. You know, the satin finishing and the black on the blade mixed with the carbon fiber, mixed with sort of the slightly reflective black titanium parts. It looks cool. You know, it looks good. It goes with it. You know, I have my own particular taste, but sometimes the style of a knife can give life to an aesthetic feature that I wouldn't normally appreciate, and that is the case here with this guy. It's also the case with this very odd deployment. I mean, this is a removable thumb stud, I guess is what we're going to call it. Initially, I saw the honeycomb serial, and I know that people are going to be mad at me for saying that. They're like, no, I can't unsee that. But I think it's supposed to be like a 6-shooter barrel on a firearm, and in that sense, that makes it a lot cooler than the honeycomb serial. But it does work very well, and the nice thing is those large, you know, the large bumps, the large grooves are actually nicely rounded off. So that means that your thumb is not going to get tired deploying this guy over and over again, or your rear finger, if you like to do the reverse flick. Some people are going to have to do, you know, digging their fingernail underneath it, and some people are actually going to be able to get the meat of their finger under there and do it. I was doing it earlier, but don't seem to be able to do it now. Let's try again. So anyways, you can definitely get it if you want to use your fingernail, if you want to get your fingernail up underneath that deal there. I'm going to have to at some point do a tutorial video on how I do that, though my demonstration there probably isn't doing my doing my credibility any favors. But anyways, yeah, it's a very good deployment mechanism. I like it a lot. I like that you can remove it too. I also really like the lock-in position back here. That's very comfortable. Having this barrel here that my thumb can rest on, it just feels good. I really feel like I could bear down on this. The barrel is a little bit in the cutting path. Actually, it's quite a bit in the cutting path. So if you're going to cut straight down, you lose a lot. Actually, about half an inch of that cutting edge. If you're going to cut straight down, you need to be more out here. But if you're going to do a regular sort of curved cut, then you don't need to worry about it too much. As usual, I really don't like all the stuff that ZT puts all over their blades, but okay, whatever. No big deal. Moving down to the carbon fiber, it is in typical ZT fashion, very, very beautiful carbon fiber. I really, really like how that looks. Everything is nicely rounded off all the way around. No issues there whatsoever. I like the continued theme of the whole 6-shooter thing coming into play here on the pivot. I think that looks nice. You do have an adjustment side on this side, so no fears. Let's go ahead and check the size on that. Go ahead and get out my handy dandy WIA bit selector, and of course my magnetic WIA driver. Both of these items are very inexpensive, very highly recommended items. You can find them down in my description, along with a bunch of the other really nice knives that I show on my channel every single day, whether they are some of the more expensive high-end production knives or some of the budget knives that I recommend on this channel. You can find everything nicely sorted out down there. Whatever your itch is, you can scratch it down there. Let's go ahead and... yeah, so the pivot is a T8, absolutely. And I can almost guarantee those body screws are going to be T6, which is not, it's more typical of ZT lately. Let's make sure that that's a T6. Yeah, more typical of ZT lately, but it didn't used to be. Their body screws used to be gigantic. Take a look here without putting a mark in it. Can we get that in there? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so yeah, that's a T6. You guys know how I feel about T6. I don't like it. They're easy to strip. The bits that you're using are easy to strip. And in this knife's case, you actually have one more body screw than I prefer. There's 3 body screws in this, making, you know, a little bit of an excess of parts and little teeny tiny parts. So there's going to be 3 on each side for a total of 6. They're holding in the backspacer. That's fine. I don't like it, but it's not a deal breaker. There's no lanyard hole on this guy, which is fine. I don't need a lanyard hole. Some people aren't going to like that, though. The backspacer is super interesting. It's like, it almost looks like a bullet or multiple bullets, and at the same time, they continue the theme of the whole 6-shooter thing. It's very unique and very different. I think some people are really going to enjoy the aesthetic of that backspacer, and some people aren't. Initially, I was like, nope, that's weird, and now I kind of like it. You know, it's like, all it took was a color change for me, and this knife had an enormous amount of life breathed into it, and I really like that. So the backspacer is weird, but it's definitely going to do its job, and it's a lot more interesting than the standard backspacer that you see on a lot of knives like this. You can see they actually cut additional room here up at the top of the carbon fiber to make room for that. Everything is nicely fitted in true or in standard ZT fashion. We have a, perhaps the plainest part on the entire knife is the pocket clip. But you know what? I've heard complaints about the pocket clip that it's weird and it doesn't go with the knife, you know, but I like a simple pocket clip. And it honestly reminds me a little bit, and not exactly, but just in the design, it reminds me a little bit of the Hinderer pocket clip in the sense that it's got 2 screws up here. It's just straight, and then it had, well, this actually tapers, but then there's a little bit of slot cut in it. It just looks like a different version of the Hinderer pocket clip. And in terms of getting this knife in and out of your pants, the pocket clip works flawlessly. Absolutely, it's a great pocket clip. It's moving over a smooth carbon fiber surface. The knife carries about right there, so not deep carry, but definitely not shallow carry. I think it's great. I have no issues with that whatsoever. This is probably the coolest part of the knife, the little subframe lock that's got some milling on it and this sort of semi-reflective matte black finish on. I just really like that. That's cool. The subframe lock, you can see how it actually attaches in there underneath the carbon fiber and then acts as a standard frame lock. That's really cool. There is a steel lock bar insert in there, doubling as the over travel stop. You can see there that we are coming in dead centered. That's how ZT always is. Their knives are always centered. And then your lockup is coming in at about 30% or so. There is no blade play up, down, left, or right. So that's really, really cool. I just really like this knife. You know, in terms of flaws, like in terms of things that I could actually consider flaws, I don't like the T6 body screws. I don't know that I really can complain too much about that. I mean, I don't like that they put the patent number down here. I don't like that they've got all this stuff all over the blade. Some people aren't going to like that the pocket clip doesn't seem to go with the rest of the knife. Some people aren't going to like this honeycomb or 6-shooter hardware, especially after I called that the honeycomb serial. I mean, people are going to see that and not be able to unsee it. Some people just aren't going to like that, you know, and that's perfectly fine. But in terms of actual flaws in this knife, there really aren't any. In terms of a functional design, guys, this is a serious tool. This is absolutely something that you can put in your pocket and feel confident about. This thing is gonna do the job. Carbon fiber is strong and lightweight. It's very well balanced. You have an enormous amount of cutting edge. Did I mention it's CPM 20 CV steel? That's really cool. It also has a not only a functional and strong blade shape that's ground very well, but the ergonomics on this guy are great. The lock-in position is great. The pocket clip does not cause a hot spot. I mean, this is fantastic. It's running on phosphor bronze, so you can really get it dirty. Though it would be a shame to get something so beautiful so dirty. But if you want to, you can do it. On the downside, this is one of the more expensive knives in ZT's lineup. When it was available, they ran, I think, about $270. That's expensive. I can see how they got here. This is a little bit more complicated than a standard frame lock. It's got a lot more going on. There's a lot of like very intricate design features, ones that don't really add anything in the sense of utility, but if you take pride in the tool that you carry and I mean that goes different for every single person. But if you enjoy the aesthetics of the tool that you're carrying at the same time, want it to really function as a tool, as a tool that you can depend on, then this might be for you, and you're going to see that value there. Though frame locks that ZT offers are at the $220 mark, arguably will give the exact same type of performance. So it depends on where your value system is. Considering that this is a high-end production knife, and it's within a price range that I still am okay with recommending, to people, and I can see how they arrived at that price point, given the competition out there. Yeah, this is still a knife that I can readily recommend to people. Now, the problem is that it's discontinued, and for each day that passes from now until the end of time, this knife will be more and more difficult to come by, which means, keep in mind, these ran $270, when they were readily available. I think if you can find one in perfect condition for that exact price, once these become completely unavailable from retailers and your only choice is the secondary market, if you can find one for about that price, and I think you're good. If people start asking, 300, 350, they start doing that, then no, that sucks. People do that, but no, this isn't a $300 knife, $350 knife. But yeah, I can see 270. It's like I say with a lot of knives, sure would be nice if it was just a little bit less expensive, but what are you going to do? I think this is an excellent tool. It's an excellent design. I really, really enjoyed this knife a lot more than I thought I was going to. So sadly, this is what ZT's moving away from. They're moving away from designs like this, and they're moving towards designs that are just not what I like from ZT. But not everybody thinks the same way. This knife to me represents kind of a pivot for ZT. It's kind of a change, an evolution, a direction that I'm not 100% on board with, but we'll see what other surprises ZT has in store for us in the future. Guys, that's going to be pretty much it for today's knife review and overview. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do of course have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on this Metal Complex logo right here and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.